The God on the Edge of Town by J. Wilburn. Kathy Thorne had enough. She drew the largest knife she could find from the butcher block. She wasn't a great cook. He reminded her of that often. She didn't know what the different types of knives were for exactly, but she knew what she planned to use this one for tonight. Without closing the front door behind her, she walked out into the night with her biggest knife to seek revenge. Kathy passed the neighbors. Oops, I clicked the wrong thing. Kathy passed the neighbors' houses. Most still had lights on. It was early evening. Kids had been called in. Dinners had mostly been eaten. Homework was finished or needed to be. Televisions and computer screens gave everyone something to stare at as they pushed off bedtimes as long as possible, as long as they dared. Kathy took a right out of the neighborhood with the knife swinging down by her side. Street lights played off her hair and the metal of the blade. Cars passed in buzzes and swooshes of air. If they saw what she carried or suspected what she planned, none of them bothered to slow down to even consider doing something about it. It was one of those weird hours where it didn't pay to get involved in anything complicated. Kathy moved on and crossed the gradual arc of the bridge, making no effort to hide what she carried. Maybe it was the confidence that caused all the passerbys that night. Passerby. Okay, I'm just going to leave it like that. Well, let me check and see if there's a spelling suggestion. Passersby, that's what it is. Kind of like mothers-in-law. All right, passersby that night to decide she belonged where she was. The hours grew late, and she approached the outskirts of town. This was her outer limit. She had no idea if everyone else in or out of town were bound by the same rules, but she had a force that kept her where she was. It was a curse she had from early days. Whatever fate placed her in whatever place designated for her, the boundaries went up. The men in her life served as guardians of these limits. Many of them, especially the current guy she intended to rid herself of tonight, could barely hold their own lives together. But they were faithful to holding Kathy Thorne in place. They maintained her boundaries with godlike patience. She intended to violate those boundaries tonight. As with most great redemptions in history and in the universe, it would likely require the spilling of blood. The last few buildings fell behind her. There used to be a sign out here that marked the true edge of town. It was nothing grand or beautiful, just reflective green and white, with the town name like a statement of fact instead of something to be proud of or to brag about. Last she saw it, which was admittedly a long time ago. Okay, let me be specific here. The last she saw that sign, which was admittedly a long time ago, it had been pocked with bullet holes and BB dents. Now it appeared to be gone entirely. She had no doubt that the god of boundaries out here would let her know when she reached the hard line. Sure enough, there he sat, a grown man in baggy jeans, a few decades out of style. He wore a red cap on backward. He needed to shave, if for no other reason than to hide the fact he couldn't grow a real beard out of all that patchy mess. Sitting... Let me add something here. Kathy always seemed to find herself with guys who couldn't grow a real beard, but always tried. There we go. All right. Sitting slumped in an orange school chair in the dirt on the side of the road, he looked like a frat brother to the man she wished to be rid of. "You here to stop me?" she demanded. He looked up as if he hadn't noticed her, nor was here because of her. He almost looked bored to see her, and it made her want to use the knife. He showed her a smile that did nothing for his appeal. "You lost, girl? I don't find you funny. Wasn't trying to be, and I'm not here to entertain you." All right, gotta fix the typo there. As always, the typos that make me feel dumbest are the homophone ones. I think readers see those and think the author doesn't know what he's doing. His smile wavered. Where would you even go? Wherever you think it would be, you still got to take yourself with you. If I let you escape one guy, won't you just find another one like him, same as every other time before? He's your guy, your brother, in your image. I need you to take care of him. He tilted his head. The hat turned light blue. His cheeks had a closer shave, and the hair showing at the temples was now silvery gray. If I don't, you plan to poke me with that knife until I do? I think I can hurt you, she said, or force you to finish him off if you don't do what I want. Force you to finish me off if you don't do what I want. Over the course of her words, he went from a smile to a frown to a straight, tight line. Let's see, with his lips. All right. To a straight, tight line with his lips. Finally, he took a deep breath and said, you haven't had the courage to stand up to him in any meaningful way yet, but now you're ready to get him killed or yourself in the process. Folks like me don't have much middle ground between the two options, not with guys like you keeping me in these boundaries. It's funny, girl, that you believe you had no part in setting up these boundaries of your life. Boundaries, let's say for your life. For your life. What folks like you have is a need for a god or a devil to blame for everything wrong with what your life touches. You going to do it or not? Like that, huh? He stood from the chair, and then there was no chair, although the 4 depressions in the sand where the feet of the chair had sunk in still remained. He lost the hat and the aging frat boy's face. His clothes became shaggy fur, and he stood over her on his hind legs. Even with his imposing savage height, he wavered on his paws, let's say his back paws, like a creature not accustomed to standing upright for long. One terrible paw with deadly black claws rested heavy on her shoulder. He spoke with the same smug voice he had in his human form. This is one of those situations where any sacrifices required are going to have to be done by your hand. Your life and any changes you want for it require the work of your hands and the will to see it through. It's never been different, and it's past time that you learned it. Your breath smells like fish and rat. Not rat. Why do I keep doing that? I always try to spell rot as a rat, so let's say rot. Who would even know how a rat smells? He gave a bellowing laugh that sounded more animal than human. When nothing else was said, he added, I'll admit I had a part in the problem if you'll admit that you were not hands-off in the situation as it is now. He shook his hairy head. That's what she said. Okay. I don't care what you admit to or not. It makes little difference to me. I need you to play a part in the solution. Very well, the bear god on the edge of town said. I'll loan you a little power, a little courage, and a little piece of me for the business ahead. What you do or fail to do after that is on you. I'm not here to give you promises or pep talks. I'm fine watching you waste away as slowly or as quickly as you like. As soon as he finished talking, she pulled away from his paw in pain. The agony fell on her so sharp and quick, she thought he had bitten her. Kathy looked down and saw her hands swell. She screamed and fell to her knees. From there she watched. Okay, let me put a comma there. From there, she watched the dark fur envelop her skin. Her own nails sweated blood as they rounded into dark... Okay. I don't need round twice. Into dark claws as sharp as his. Kathy looked herself over, expecting to see she had transformed like some were animal. It was just her hands. It was just the hands and paws. For a moment, she saw her ordinary hands again. Then they were bear claws. With a shot of arthritic ache, her own hands appeared again. Okay, just a moment there. I don't understand, she whispered as she closed her fingers with an effort. Looking up, he had turned into a fleet little fox, the same shade as the chair that had been there a moment ago. The fox flitted on the edge of the road, kicking up dust around two deep, bare tracks. She thought there were... She thought there... Okay, let me fix that. She thought there would be no more words. But the sly frat boy voice came from the fox's snout one more time. You got the claws, girl. Time to stop making excuses and decide how you're going to use them. Before she could answer, the little fox sprinted away from the road along a line that had to be the town's border. Kathy stood up and never considered trying to cross that invisible line. She intended to break her boundaries tonight, but that breaking needed to occur back in the center of her life first. She left the knife lying in the center of the road as she turned for home. Cars passed her, but they did slow down a little this time. Something about her wasn't right. The drivers couldn't place it, but they sped back up when they decided it was nothing they wanted to be a part of. Kathy Thorne didn't notice. She watched her hand shift back and forth from human to animal. Got an extra space in there. She couldn't wait to see him tonight.